She was a beautiful young mother who loved being in front of the camera.
She was very, very photogenic, so she definitely wanted to pursue a career in modeling.
She just was always full of life. She was the life of the party.
So when she suddenly goes missing, it's clear something's wrong.
Everybody is on edge searching for her.
We were on a mission, so we were doing our best. We had flashlights, we had glow sticks.
And the investigation reveals a devastating discovery.
It was hard. My heart broke literally in half because of it.
She's dead, okay?
He was crying and screaming.
We still didn't have answers. We still needed the answers.
And when the answers come, they'll shock even the most seasoned investigators.
She started carrying a gun for protection.
I can't prove it, but just by seeing him and the way he was acting, something's not right. Something's not right.
Right, my family's glad you told me. You know what everybody said.
I think this is a cautionary tale that trust is earned.
Detectives know fear is a powerful motivator.
I didn't know if this was a sign of the things to come, that he was gonna get away with this.
Watch the company that you keep.
March 30th, 2014. It's a Saturday afternoon in Gwinnett County, Georgia, a suburb just 30 miles outside the heart of Atlanta.
People from all over the world come here who are seeking work or an employment in and around the Atlanta area.
There's several colleges, there's industry, technology going on here.
For most, today is a day of respite. But for Celia Owens, her weekend has been anything but relaxing.
On Friday evening, Celia agreed to watch the 3-year-old daughter of her friend, Angela Rabate, while Angela was at work.
But Angela never returned to pick up her daughter.
Listen, I'm starting to get really worried. Please, call me back.
She hadn't heard from her, and all of Celia's calls were going straight to voicemail.
Celia starts reaching out to Angela's mother, who lives in Las Vegas.
Hello?
Hi, Judy.
Oh, hi, Celia. What's up?
I don't want to sound overdramatic, but I'm really concerned about Angela.
When Celia called me and told me that Angie had not been there to pick up Shay, there was reason to be concerned because she would not have left her daughter without it being known that she wasn't coming back that night. It was so out of the ordinary for her to do that, so it immediately raised red flags.
I need you to go to the police, okay? I'm gonna get the next flight out, and I'll call you as soon as I land, all right?
Something was really wrong, like something was wrong.
Known for her beauty and spirited personality, 26-year-old Angela Rabate had the charm and fire to take the world head on.
Angie just was always full of life. She was smiles galore, active, energetic, fun-loving, just wanted to be the life of the party.
Angela was a ball of everything. Like, she was funny. Like, that's what kind of gravitated me towards her. She was always joking, just a fun person to be around.
Angela's good looks and magnetic personality landed her several modeling gigs throughout her 20s.
People gravitated towards Angela. So, like, she did a couple of modeling gigs. She did a lot of print model for magazines. She was very, very photogenic, you know? So, yeah, she definitely wanted to pursue a career in modeling.
She hoped a career in modeling would allow her to travel the world.
She just wanted to have fun and enjoy life. She just wanted to see everything. She loved going to Miami. She loved going to New York. She just wanted to travel.
But more than anything else, Angela's greatest love in life was her daughter.
She's an amazing mom. She showered her with love and wanted her daughter to, you know, have the best upbringing.
She wanted the world for her daughter. Everything was about baby Shay.
However, as much as Angela hoped for a traditional family unit, her relationship with Shay's father wasn't working out.
When I met Angie, she was with her daughter's father, Brian Dunn, and they were kind of like in a rocky spot. I think he didn't like her line of work.
Eventually, they decided to part ways, but they remained in close contact for the sake of their daughter.
When Angela and Brian broke up, it was messy at first. She was really hurt by it because she didn't want to be a single parent and she didn't want to not be with him because she actually loved him. And it took a lot of them, talking and getting past the anger for them to be on a better understanding.
As Angela was trying to move on from the heartbreak, she was met with a blast from the past.
In February 2014, someone she knew from back in the day walked back in her life. That was 29-year-old Charles Outlaw.
They grew up very close as teenagers, but as they grew up as adults, they lost touch.
Charles and Angela found each other on social media and reconnected.
Wow. Where you been, girl?
Oh my God, it's just been so long.
It was almost like no time had passed at all, and they picked right back up where they left off.
Come get a drink with me tonight.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Angie was a beautiful young lady. It was easy to have a crush on her. She was stunning. And she used to tell me, Mom, remember, he always had a crush on me. He still really likes me.
Even though Angela wasn't ready for another relationship, she still enjoyed Charles' company.
Angie did not have a car at the time, so Charles would take her, go get her nails done, go get her hair done.
She sent me a picture of some shoes that he had bought Shay without her even asking him to do it. So he would do those little things that kind of win her over.
Angela looked at him as somebody she could really depend on, and she was really grateful for that.
But 1 month later, Angela Rabate has disappeared into thin air.
She hasn't returned to pick up her daughter after leaving her with a friend.
It immediately raised red flags.
Something was really wrong.
As Angela's mother catches the next flight from Las Vegas, Angela's friend Celia heads to the Gwinnett County Police Department to report her missing.
So when's the last time you heard from her?
Not since Friday night when she dropped off her daughter. It was around 11 p.m.
Where was she going?
She was working an event.
Celia doesn't have many details, but she does know the venue was a ritzy home in Smyrna, about 10 miles outside of Atlanta.
Celia says Angela was working the party as an exotic dancer.
Angela had recently picked up dancing as a way to provide for her daughter.
She would make hundreds, in fact, thousands in one night. She performed under the stage name Climax and made a name for herself.
Any job where you're working at night in the city in the entertainment industry can be extremely dangerous.
She was getting so much attention because of her beauty and her skill set that she started carrying a gun for protection.
Being a dancer in Atlanta, you're constantly coming into contact with people who are out and about for nefarious reasons.
Did her profession put her in danger that night?
14. 26-year-old Angela Rabate was reconnecting with old friends after weathering a difficult breakup with the father of her daughter.
Angela began spending a lot of time with an old friend from high school named Charles Outlaw.
They started hanging, not tight, but he still was trying to kind of get into the mix. He liked her.
Angela had also picked up a lucrative career as a dancer to help provide for her daughter.
She was working as an exotic dancer, and she was damn good at it.
She would dance at high-end events around Atlanta. One night could net her thousands of dollars.
But now Angela has mysteriously disappeared after going to work at one of those high-end events.
Detectives start to wonder if maybe one of her adoring fans could have gone too far and maybe assaulted Angela or kidnapped her even.
She always has her handgun on her when she's working. She knows how sketchy some guys are out there.
Do you know any of the other girls she works with?
I know Coco. I can give you her number.
That would be helpful.
Here. Just write it down there for us.
After wrapping up their interview with Celia, investigators get in touch with Angela's co-worker, Coco Shaw.
I spoke with Coco Shaw over the phone, who told me that she had been at the party with Angela that night.
So it kind of just go over for me what all happened that night that you know of.
Like from the beginning, or?
Yeah, please.
Okay, well, we were booked for a party Friday. We went there when we started the party and everything. It pretty much went good.
Coco says by the end of the night, Angela was starting to lose steam.
The group continued to party, but Coco tells detectives that Angela had a few drinks and needed to lay down.
Hey, hon. You doing all right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm just exhausted. It's been a long night.
I asked her if she needed a ride home, but she said she lived in Gwinnett, and she said that some guy was coming from Gwinnett to come get her.
Coco Shaw told me that Angela was in a good mood, that she was laughing, that she was talking to the person on the phone and giving him directions.
Around 5:30 a.m., Angela's ride arrived.
You see her. I'm headed out. All right, girl. Hey, don't forget this. Of course not.
Coco tells investigators that when Angela left that night, she had a lot of cash on her, roughly about $2,000. And she also had a money counter.
That money counter, she took it with her everywhere because she, in her line of work, she wanted to make sure she had her money.
She was acting normal. She was like happy. She was just ready to go home. She was tired.
See ya. Bye.
If anyone knows where Angela is, investigators are betting it's her mystery driver. But who is he?
Angela's friend says his name is Charles Outlaw. Detectives want to speak with Charles immediately.
Investigators quickly track down Charles Outlaw for questioning.
Thanks for coming in on such short notice, Charles. We wanted to talk to you about a missing persons case we're working on.
They inform him that Angela is missing, and by all accounts, he was the last person seen with her.
Oh my God. I hope she's all right.
You don't know where she is right now?
No.
He gave a version of events stating that he did pick her up from the job.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for the ride.
And when did you drop her back off at her apartment?
We actually never even made it back to her place.
He said he had to pick up something from his apartment in Norcross, so he parked the car and went inside while Angela remained in the car.
He was only gone a short time, maybe anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes.
Actually, when I got back to the car, she was gone.
He claims he didn't know where she went, and he told us that he had called her a couple of times after she came up missing.
That didn't concern you? You didn't call the police?
Honestly speaking, man, I thought she left with another guy.
He said that they got into an argument when he picked her up from the party. He was complaining about having to pick her up so late, and that made her angry.
I think it's about time for you to get your own car soon, especially with all that money you're making.
What is that supposed to mean?
She kept saying that there were plenty of guys who would have been happy to give her a ride. He also noticed that she was texting other people.
You know what? I can just get somebody else to pick me up.
Stop. Don't worry about it. Let's just get out of here.
Fine.
First, I'm gonna have to make a pit stop before we get to your place.
But when detectives ask Charles what he was grabbing so late in the night, he hesitates.
What did you need to pick up in Norcross?
I went to go pick up some weed.
Charles reluctantly tells police that he's a small-time drug dealer and he had to pick up some marijuana to drop off for a buyer on the way back.
Not only that, but Charles is currently on parole. He was previously incarcerated on drug charges, so this is not a good look.
Look, I I don't want to get in trouble.
Gwinnett County are speaking with Charles Outlaw about the disappearance of his friend, 26-year-old dancer Angela Rabate.
By all accounts, Charles is the last person to see Angela before she vanished.
And Charles has just admitted that on the night of her disappearance, he was working an illegal drug deal.
Charles reluctantly tells police that he's a small-time drug dealer and he had to pick up some marijuana to drop off for a buyer on the way back to Angela's home.
Not only that, but Charles is currently on parole. He was previously incarcerated on drug charges, so this is not a good look.
Look, I don't want to get in trouble.
Listen, Charles, we're not really worried about the drugs right now. We're more focused on Angela's missing person case.
Charles is relieved.
At that point in time, we wanted him to show me where he last saw Angela, and I asked him to take me on the route that he went when he went home that night.
Now that investigators have identified Angela's last known location, the search for her intensifies.
They had started to organize a search party.
It was at 10 o'clock at night, so it was dark. But again, we were on a mission. So, the detective came out. We were doing our best. We had flashlights, we had glow sticks.
The group scours the area late into the night. Sadly, they came up empty-handed.
I told everyone, listen, let's plan on getting back here tomorrow around 11 a.m. where we can use the daylight.
One person has been noticeably absent from the search. Angela's ex, Brian Dunn.
Someone else reached out for him and told him that she was missing. And he didn't have a car, so he was just like, okay, and then by day 2, he was there.
As the search continues, detectives take Brian aside to ask him some questions.
Anytime there's a case where somebody is missing, law enforcement is always going to look at some of the relationships that person has.
So tell us about your relationship with Angela.
Well, we dated for several years, and we have a daughter together.
How's the co-parenting situation?
It's been fine. No problems.
He indicated to me that they had a co-parenting relationship that was positive. He said that they weren't having any issues.
You haven't had any contact with her since Friday?
No. I didn't even know she was missing until today.
He seems genuinely concerned about Angela's disappearance.
I don't feel like he would harm a hair on her head. I think he still was in love with her, despite everything.
Just then, Brian spots Charles.
Hey!
Brian, it's his first time seeing Charles, and he has questions.
Why would you leave her in the car by herself?
Brian, I think, at one point was kind of pinpointing him and trying to say, like, no way you're going to come here and just leave Andy in the car and then her just disappear.
Man, you don't know me.
What?
Hell out
Now
my
I do,
face.
bro.
Get the hell out of my face.
What?
So they get into arguing, and then Charles goes off the road.
And a physical altercation breaks out between Brian Dunn and Charles Outlaw.
Hey, break it up. Break it up.
I got in the middle of it, and I told both of them, listen, we're here for a purpose, which is to find Angela, and let's not jump to conclusions on what could have happened.
But as officers attempt to part the two men and restrain them, Charles does something unexpected.
He reached one of his hands into her pocket, pulled out what I later found out to be cocaine, and tried to throw the cocaine away.
What the hell's going on over here?
Between his earlier admission about the illegal drug dealing and being caught red-handed with cocaine, police couldn't let this slide.
I think at that point in time, he realized that he was going to go to jail. He tried to run.
But quick on their feet, officers soon get Charles back under control.
Everyone in the search party started to think that I was arresting Charles for Angela's disappearance, and that obviously was not the case. It was for a probation violation.
At this point, they don't have any hard evidence that Charles has lied to police or that he had any involvement in Angela's disappearance.
When I searched Charles's home, there wasn't any evidence inside the home that led us to where Angela was.
For all they know, she could be somewhere out there alive and well.
But as several more days pass without any sign of Angela, concern continues to mount.
Now, if she was still safe and alive, why wouldn't she have turned up by now?
Detectives are becoming increasingly suspicious that something terrible might have happened to Angela.
And on April 3rd, 6 days after Angela was last seen, the call comes into Gwinnett PD that everyone's been dreading.
Flynn?
They found a body.
All right, we'll be right there.
It was no longer a missing person. This was going to be a homicide investigation.
6 days after Angela Rabate vanished from an apartment complex in Gwinnett County, investigators have received the phone call everyone has been dreading.
Local surveyors alert them of a dead body found 20 miles away in Lilburn, Georgia.
Yep, we'll be right there.
She's right over there. The location is on an industrial road that has nothing but businesses. And that particular area was about a 2-acre size lot of nothing but woods.
When investigators see the body, there's no doubt about it. This is Angela.
I had seen so many pictures of her that it was very evident that it was her immediately. We knew that this was going to be a homicide investigation, and it was no longer a missing person.
It's also clear Angela's death was no accident.
There was a gunshot wound to the back left side of her head.
This was a cold-blooded act of execution.
There was other clothing items, some shoes, boots, makeup bag, and a few personal items that were laying around that area.
The money counter that she had been seen with when she left was missing, as was the money that she had.
When the tragic news reaches Angela's loved ones, they're devastated.
Unfortunately, I had to give Angela's mom the news that it was Angela, that we had found her.
I got the phone calls, and I was just numb. It was done. It was over. And my baby was gone.
My heart broke literally in half because of it. It just sucks that somebody just take her life like that. She was so young.
As Angela's loved ones continue to grieve, detectives kick the investigation into high gear.
Now that their missing persons investigation has become a homicide, detectives are more determined than ever to figure out exactly what happened to Angela Rabate.
Sergeant Flynn, he was amazing. Like, he was amazing. Like the empathy that he had towards the situation, the case, it was like, okay, we're gonna get to the bottom of it. It felt like he took it personal. So he started, honing in on Charles.
Have them ready for us. We're on our way back.
Investigators sit down with Charles Outlaw at the Gwinnett County Jail, where he's already in custody on the probation violation.
We didn't tell him initially that we found the body.
Regardless, Charles is clearly feeling the heat.
During the interview, Charles comes across as paranoid and agitated. He claims that people are trying to set him up, and even at one point in the interview, he begins banging on the table to get his point across.
I wish there was a woman, man. I wish I knew that woman together, man. That's just how really it is, man. You see what I'm saying? Just real talk, man, because I don't need this in my life right now. I'm already locked up for no reason.
Hoping to get Charles to spill what he knows, detectives finally break the tragic news of Angela's death.
The game's changed a little bit here, okay? So we found Angela today. She's dead, okay?
When we told him that we found the body of Angela, Charles Outlaw threw a fit.
Are you all right down there, or you want to sit in the chair? You need to take a minute, you just take a minute.
It's a shocking display of emotion, but it strikes the investigators as disingenuous.
He was crying and screaming, and it was all an act. It was overkill.
After letting Charles's explosion die down, investigators continue the interrogation.
This is your opportunity to say, you're the last person to be seen. This is your opportunity to clear your name. You understand what I'm saying? I believe I'm just going to exercise my right. You know what I mean? To have an attorney to kind of guide me. You see what I'm saying?
Charles asked for a lawyer and refused to answer any more questions.
That shut the conversation down. But investigators have no doubt in their minds they have the right guy in custody.
Now more convinced than ever that Charles is Angela's killer, investigators start digging for more evidence to prove it.
As they interview more and more of Angela's friends, detectives are eventually put in touch with a guy named Paul Jacobs.
Should you calling me back?
Yeah, this is crazy right now. This is really crazy.
He told me over the phone that he had met Charles the week before, that he didn't really like Charles.
I do not like him. This guy is scary.
Paul says on March 30th, the day after Angela went missing, he came face to face with Charles that afternoon.
He had been at a car wash the day after Angela disappeared, and while he was there, he immediately recognized Charles Outlaw.
He was looking like he had just struck oil on Sunday.
Oh, like he had gone out and bought a bunch of new clothes?
Yeah.
According to Paul, Charles was acting incredibly odd.
Paul noticed that Charles was detailing every part of his car.
This guy, he was uneasy. He was constantly looking around. He wouldn't sit down for nothing for like 45 minutes. They were detailing the hell out of this car. They were doing everything.
Paul Jacobs told me that Charles was very insistent on the employees cleaning the inside of the car, just being overbearing about how he wanted the car cleaned.
Paul said that Charles was also flashing lots of cash, mostly small bills.
He says he was tipping the staff at the car wash tons of money.
This dude took these kids like crazy. It was just something that was so strange, and the dude was in there spending way too much money just by seeing him and the way he was acting. Something's not right.
Charles was the last person to be seen with Angela. Now, the following day after she was missing, he was cleaning the car, wearing brand new clothing.
They also have to wonder if the cash she was throwing around could have been Angela's tips from the party on Friday night.
Those were all, red flags for us. Okay, there's something going on here.
All right, thank you.
All right.
All right, bye-bye.
And when investigators file a warrant to search Charles's vehicle, they uncover another unsettling piece of information.
Mr. Outlaw's car. It was a rent-a-car.
Who in their right mind cleans a rental car very well prior to turning it in, knowing the rental car company is going to clean it also in detail? And so that's a very suspicious act to go along with everything else.
They immediately confiscate the car and have it analyzed by their forensics team.
This was the same car that we knew that he had driven Angela in the night that she went missing. We were able to find the gunshot residue on the roof of the car that indicated that a gunshot had gone off inside the car. Although Charles tried to clean the car out and detail it and get rid of any evidence that was in there, he forgot to clean the roof of the car.
It's damning evidence, but investigators are about to get an even bigger slam dunk.
This is Detective Ross.
They received word that Charles's roommate wants to speak with them.
Charles had actually confessed to him that he had killed Angela.
Have zeroed in on Charles Outlaw as the prime suspect in Angela Rabate's murder.
The evidence against him is just piling up at this point. Not only was he the last person to be with Angela before she disappeared, but he was also seen getting his car detailed the day after she went missing. And police found gun residue on the roof of that same vehicle.
But investigators are about to get another slam dunk.
This is Detective Ross.
They received word that Charles's roommate wants to speak with them.
You kidding me?
Charles had actually confessed to him that he had killed Angela.
When detectives sit down with Charles's roommate, Willie Daniels, he doesn't hold back.
So it's real serious.
Willie tells the police that on the night Angela went missing, Charles Outlaw woke him up in the early morning hours to make a confession.
Hey, wake up.
He was kind of pain, It looked like there's something like wrong, something like seriously wrong, something ain't right at all.
What's going on?
Charles Outlaw told him that he'd had a struggle with Angela, that she had a gun.
His exact words was, "Feeling a whole girl age attitude was awesome." It was hard. He had some little gun or something that he made. He said he was kind of wrestling over it accidentally as well. he was just like, man, I think I'm gonna kill on girl with this little. I'm like, what?
So that the word you used?
Yeah, he was like, if you don't kill him, I think I would kill him.
After confessing, Willie says Charles became terrified at the idea of being caught.
I cannot go back to prison, man. Like, I can't.
Willie says that Charles started to panic and he jumped up and started stripping off his clothes, saying that he needed to get rid of the evidence.
And he was just like, man, you know, I gotta take my clothes, I just on my clothes. And he started talking about, he was just, he's in the daze, you know, he don't know what's going on. So he's real panicking. He's talking to me like, man, I don't know what I'm doing.
Willie says that's when Charles turned on him.
You got my back, right?
Yeah, I got your back.
He threatened Willie that he would have some sort of harm done to him or his family were he to tell law enforcement what Charles Outlaw had confessed to him.
He's trying to tell me, like, man, don't say that to nobody, man. Like I told you, he threatened my family, because he told me he knows my baby mother, he know where everybody stay at.
Detectives eventually confront Willie and ask if he helped Charles get rid of the body or the murder weapon, but he denies it.
He confronted, like, all that I just told you, that's what he got off his chest. After that, I didn't go digging, like, hey, so what did you do with this? What did you do with that? So I was just kind of like, me just knowing that was just enough.
He didn't ask for your help?
He didn't ask my help or nothing.
Willie says he wished he had come forward earlier, but he was afraid of what Charles might do to his family.
With Charles now incarcerated on the drug charges, Willie felt safer giving a statement to police.
And with Willie's statement in tow, investigators believe they have everything they need to charge Charles with Angela's murder.
At this point, Charles Outlaw was then arrested at the jail for the murder of Angela Rabate.
We charged him with murder, felony murder, and concealing the death of a person.
But obtaining justice for Angela Rabate will be easier said than done.
We finally get a court date for August in 2016, and all of a sudden, they declare a mistrial.
In the spring of 2016, Gwinnett County Police have finally charged Charles Outlaw for the murder of 26-year-old single mother Angela Rabate.
I can remember the phone call like it was yesterday when I finally got the call saying that they were charging him. And we were actually on a car trip going to California, and we just pulled over the car and screamed for joy.
On August 15th, 2016, Charles's murder trial begins.
Fast forward, we finally get a court date for August in 2016. The first day of court, we're sitting there and it's hard. It's hard seeing him in court. It's hard knowing that we're about to relive our worst nightmare through all of this.
He came into trial, you know, with the glasses on and, you know, very postured. He had no one. There was no one sitting on his side. There was absolutely not one person there for him at all.
But just as the prosecution is getting started, the trial faces a setback.
They get into testimony and all of a sudden they declare a mistrial from something that supposedly had been agreed upon pre-trial.
In this case, it was agreed by both parties that the jury should not hear evidence of Charles Outlaw's prior criminal activity or the reason that he was arrested for having a small amount of drugs on him during the search for Angela. But one of the recordings of Outlaw talking to a detective unfortunately included mention that he had been on probation in the past.
For Angela's loved ones and Gwinnett County law enforcement alike, the mistrial is a crushing blow.
And that was very concerning because a lot of times cases are not retried after a mistrial.
It was devastating to me. I didn't know if this was a sign of the things to come, that he was gonna get away with this. So I'm now wondering, are we even gonna get justice for my baby?
We were worried. We felt like, okay, well, if this happens, what if Angie's life is just gonna go in vain because like this man who killed her is out, you know, living his best life.
Matt Acuff was an Angel, the DA, because he was like, Judy, we will do whatever we can to get this back on the calendar during this next week.
And Matt makes good on his promise.
Fortunately, we were able to tee it right back up for trial.
They did it. They pulled it off. They got a new jury impaneled and went ahead and proceeded with the trial. We started all over the next week.
The defense described the prosecution's case as a spaghetti prosecution. He claimed that we were just throwing things against the wall to see what would stick. I explained to a jury that this is like when a 2-year-old eats spaghetti and everything sticks to the wall. It all pointed towards Charles Outlaw.
The state accepts that the first part of Charles' story is true, that he and Angela really did get into a fight on the drive back to Gwinnett County.
Charles's own admission is that they got into an argument because he had to drive all the way across the city to get her.
But prosecutors believe there was more to the argument than that.
Charles wanted to be romantically involved with Angela, but she didn't want to have anything to do with him.
After everything that I've done for you, this is how you gonna do me?
I don't owe you anything, Charles.
She was smart. She was resourceful. So if Charles was offering her rides to and from this and that, she would do it. But that didn't mean she was gonna be his girlfriend or anything like that.
And he believed she was using him for rides and other things without being willing to grow their relationship.
I'll just get somebody else to give me rides from now on.
When she said there were other guys waiting in line, he snapped.
You were playing on me this whole time, setting me up.
That's not the case, Charles.
Prove.
Prosecutors also concede that Angela may have very well drawn her pistol to protect herself, but they assert that the injury that killed her is not consistent with an accident.
There was just no way that this could have been an accident, not with a press contact type wound on the back of the head.
Instead of seeking help, Charles dumped Angela's body in the nearby town of Lilburn and tried to cover up the crime.
He even participated in the search efforts when he knew all along where he'd hidden her body.
At the end of a week-long trial, the jury retires to deliberate.
I was so nervous. I've never been so nervous in my life.
We just cried and we prayed and we just, hoped that the jury would do the right thing. This is crazy, but when the jury went to deliberate, we seen like 20 yellow butterflies flying around the street. And I was like, that's Angie. We're gonna get justice.
After several hours of deliberation, the jury returns with their verdict.
The jury finds Charles guilty on all charges.
Charles Outlaw was sentenced to life in prison plus an additional 15 years for hiding her body.
It was what we needed. It was what we needed. We got our justice.
I was thankful that we were able to give Angie the justice that she deserved, and for him to be given life without the possibility of parole. Plus 15 years. That was like icing on the cake.
Yet even with the case finally closed, the pain of losing Angela still lingers on for her loved ones.
Angie was on the verge of getting what she wanted in life, of going for her goals and actually accomplishing them. That she was so close.
I feel like it was a fatal attraction. Charles was infatuated with Angie. When he realized that those feelings weren't reciprocated, he didn't feel valued as a man, and this is what caused him to do that.
As human beings, I think we are inclined to trust people and put our trust into those people that we feel comfortable with. But Charles was not someone that Angela could trust. So I think this is a cautionary tale that trust is earned.
The takeaway from this is watch the company that you keep.
The world lost a beautiful light, someone that would lift you up. She did for me. She was my rock. She was my comfort. And she was the sunshine and the brightness that I don't see anymore.
I want people to know that she was a great mother. She wasn't what her job defined her as. She was doing this for her daughter so she could provide for her child. Angela was amazing.
Being in love requires a leap of faith. Following someone into the great unknown, hoping to find your happily ever after. But when passion and devotion are twisted into obsession and control, that leap of faith can feel like being pushed off a cliff. Plummeting into an abyss where everything you know, even yourself, slowly falls further and further away until you hit rock bottom. November 1st, 2017, Detroit, Michigan. It's a quiet evening in the city once known as the crime capital of America. But Detroit has made a comeback, and many who call the community home have invested in the rebuild to promote change.
People are making neighborhoods safer, helping police enforcement to stop criminal behavior and activity.
But in one Detroit community, a single gunshot sends those efforts up in smoke.
Detroit 911.
We just had a robbery. Our police is dying.
Is he breathing?
Yes, he's breathing. He's losing too much blood.
I need you to stay with me. I request the police and EMS.
Police rush to the scene, an auto parts store on Schaefer Highway, 10 miles northwest of downtown.
All they knew at that particular time that it was a robbery and a shooting.
There's blood around an older male on the floor suffering a gunshot wound.
He was shot in the head and in grave condition.
When you go to a scene like that, it strikes down in your own heart.
We had to catch the persons that was involved.
As EMTs rush the victim to a nearby hospital, responding officers cordon off the scene. But as they dig into the investigation, they will discover there is more to this robbery and to the individual that pulled the trigger than meets the eye. "23-year-old Detroit native Shante Anderson was a dedicated mom to her young daughter of 4.
She's a young single mom, doing the best that she can.
The pregnancy had been a bit of a shock to Shante, as well as to the child's father.
We was in a year-long relationship, and unbeknownst to me, I was pregnant.
The father didn't stick around after the baby was born, but that only made Shante more determined to provide for her little girl.
She said, "I'm a strong woman. I can do this myself. I want to be able to take care of her. So I'm going to go ahead and try to become a professional woman."
My goal was to become a preschool teacher, so I went to school for early childhood development.
Shante leaned on her family while she studied toward her degree.
I had family support. When it came to my daughter, my mom and my sisters still watch her while I worked and went to school.
With a close family and a beautiful baby girl, Shante felt lucky. But there was one thing missing.
Most young women at that age desire some form of companionship.
She said, "I don't need a man to help me, but I want somebody that I can love."
And Shante soon found love with an old family friend, 39-year-old Leviticus Cooper.
I knew him, most of my life growing up. He was a friend of my dad's and my uncle's.
Even though Leviticus was 16 years older than Shante, she felt safe with him.
There is this paternal element to it, protector, provider, father figure. All of these elements make it very easy for someone to fall in love.
If I ever needed anything, I could just call him. Without a shadow of a doubt, he was there to fix it.
For Shante, her connection with Leviticus grew even stronger after a death in her family.
When my uncle passed away, he had stuck around and helped my great-grandma. It kind of attracted me to him.
They started talking. They started really connecting.
They start to date and she falls in love.
It was fun, fulfilling, romantic companionship.
He made her feel loved, made her feel wanted.
Shantae hadn't planned to fall so hard for Leviticus, but he was everything she had hoped for in a man.
She's thinking that this man really loves her and that he's really going to take care of her and her daughter.
But little did Shantae know that the love of her life was harboring a secret. One that would propel Shantae down a dark path, into a life she barely recognized, into a decision that came with fatal consequences. Detectives have been dispatched to an auto parts store on Detroit's west side.
When the police got to the scene, they noticed the man that was shot in the head.
The victim, still breathing, was immediately taken to the hospital.
He was identified as 69-year-old James Holler.
He was the store manager.
Detectives speak to Mr. Haller's employees. It's clear he was loved by everyone who knew him.
He was well known in the area and a stalwart citizen in the community.
James Holler is a war vet. He took up this job, this kind of a part-time gig in retirement.
He was a hard-working man, always made sure we had clothes on our back and food on the table.
He loved us, he loved his kids, and he took care of us. He did what he was supposed to do as a man and as a father.
Now, as the beloved Mr. Haller fights for his life at the hospital, detectives must ascertain what happened.
The employees stated that 2 women had entered and looked around the store. At some point, one woman produced a gun.
And they announced a holdup.
The store employees stated that approximately $100 was taken.
Before they made off with the stolen cash, one of the women fired a single gunshot, striking Mr. Haller in the head. As he fell to the floor, the 2 women fled the scene.
They got away in a dark color SUV with a back window that was busted out, but it was covered with plastic.
There was a third suspect, a getaway driver.
As detectives wrap up their eyewitness interviews, they receive word from the hospital.
James Holler died from his injuries.
I couldn't take it. It didn't seem real. I was very upset, very hurt.
I was upset and I was mad. The only thing really running through my mind was why? That don't even make sense. For all things, in all places, why?
Who would want to do such a thing to a beloved member of the community? To help answer that question, detectives checked the store's surveillance cameras.
And the perpetrators could be seen on video.
They could see that it was 2 black females.
The videos provide a solid visual description of the perpetrators, with both of them, and the getaway driver, still at large. Detectives know time is of the essence.
You've got 2 gun women that are on the loose, and who knows what they're capable of next.
As detectives fan out in search of the suspects, they will uncover a twisted affair, one that compelled not 1, but 2 women to rob, steal, and murder, all in the name of love.
She loved him. It's just that simple. And unfortunately, life moves faster than our moral compass.
Shantae Anderson is a young mother who found love where she least expected it. In the arms of Leviticus Cooper, a family friend 16 years her senior.
Me and him had fun a lot, and I loved him.
She was deeply devoted to Leviticus. Her love was unwavering.
But after a few months of blissful romance, Shantae discovered that Leviticus had been harboring a shocking secret.
Unfortunately, this honeymoon phase doesn't last long for her. Turns out Leviticus has another life.
A life that, as fate would have it, would inextricably link Shantae Anderson to the armed robbery that left 69-year-old James Haller Jr. dead on the floor of the Detroit auto parts store he managed.
He had a good reputation. He was a kind person. He was a nice person. A lot of people knew Mr. Haller, and a lot of people were pissed.
The only thing really running through my mind was find out who did it and where they at.
Armed with surveillance footage of the two shooters, police hold a press conference the day after the shooting.
Certainly the unthinkable happened, unsensible, unnecessary, cowardly. We're relentless, and we're going to arrest you.
The victim's family also made a plea for the perpetrators.
I just want to say, you took something that can't be replaced. That man raised me, took care of me, fed me, made sure I went to school every day.
You see the family talking to the crowd and, all these microphones and all these cameras right in front of your face. You try to just suck it up and do it in the mere effort to try to find who killed your loved one.
Turn yourself in, because God don't get you if the police don't. God gonna get you. You gotta pay for what you did. You took her father away, you took her husband away.
It was quite emotional. The wife, the children, everyone was upset.
You didn't have to shoot him! You didn't have to shoot him!
Police released the store's surveillance videos of the crime to the public, hoping someone in the community can ID the suspects.
We need you to call us, anybody with information. This family wants justice. We want justice.
There was a lot of publicity when this particular crime occurred because Mr. Haller, the victim, was a very popular person.
Tips pour in, and one caller says the woman in the video looks like a friend of his, named Shantae Anderson. Detectives immediately run a background check on Shantae.
They didn't find anything bad on her in her background. They found that she was trying to get a associate's degree. They found out that she had a kid.
In fact, police find evidence that Shantae is active in the fight against crime in her hometown.
She was being an activist for the community, helping police enforcement to stop criminal behavior and activity.
She volunteered her help to the Detroit 300 organization. Now, Detroit 300 goes around helping victims of crime and bringing attention to the most outrageous crimes.
So clearly she has a desire to help and give back.
Was this a case of mistaken identity? Or did Shantae suddenly break bad? And if so, why? Detectives head to Shantae's last known address in hopes of speaking with her.
A lot of times, right at the point where you just know this is the person, and then you have to start all over.
She says, no, there's been a mistake. I'm not Shantae Anderson.
"23-year-old single mother Shantae Anderson believes she found her soulmate in older man Leviticus Cooper.
He's a man that is familiar to her, the stable figure, a man that has been around for many years, who she can depend on and rely on.
But Shantae would soon discover that the relationship wasn't built on trust, but rather on deception. And despite all the lies and prevarications, she'd wind up doing the unthinkable, all in the name of love. On November 3rd, 2 days after the murder of James Haller Jr., Detroit detectives stake out what they believe to be the home of Shantae Anderson, one of the female suspects caught on tape during the shooting.
They do surveillance on her last known address, and they see a woman matching her description leaving that residence.
Police have a photo of Shantae, and this woman looks exactly like her.
They go up to her and say, Shanta, put your hands up. She says, there's been a mistake. I'm not Shanta Anderson.
Detectives asked the woman to show them some identification.
She didn't have any ID on her.
Since she has no ID and she can't prove who she is, the police take her into custody.
At the station, detectives interrogate the unidentified woman.
Do you understand we're conducting a criminal investigation?
With me?
November the 1st, around 5 o'clock, where were you?
I was at home.
The woman continues to deny that she is Shantae Anderson.
Okay, I'm just going to show you a picture real quick, okay? Who is that?
That's Shantae. That's my sister.
Investigators realize they do in fact have a case of mistaken identity.
We made a mistake. We thought you were your sister. And I apologize. When's the last time you saw her?
I haven't seen her since like the summertime. My boyfriend and her boyfriend got into it.
Who's her boyfriend?
I only know his nickname.
What's his
name?
Nut. Do you have a phone number for him?
No.
Unable to obtain the name or number of Shantae's boyfriend, detectives press Vanessa for the address where he and Shantae might be staying.
He's staying on Frankel and Stansbury.
Frankel and Stansbury?
Mm-hmm.
Who lives over there with her?
I don't know who stayed there, but I know he be over there because it's her boyfriend.
On November 4th, 3 days after the shooting, police descend upon the address provided by Shantae's sister.
They announced, police search warrant, and no one was there.
The house is empty when they go in.
Had to clear the area to make sure there was nobody gonna attack them or anything else like that.
Once the house is cleared, detectives scour it for possible clues.
They just checked the whole area out. They were looking for weapons. They were looking for anything that allowed them to connect to that crime that they had.
On the counter, detectives find a stack of mail, but not all of it is addressed to Shantae.
They find mail belonging to another individual that lives there, a man named Leviticus.
Detectives now believe Leviticus is Shantae's boyfriend.
The police suspect that Leviticus may also be associated with the robbery and maybe the getaway driver.
Police also discover mail and an ID card belonging to a woman named Ebony McEwen Ross.
The mail belonging to Ebony verifies that she lives there.
But who is Ebony McEwen Ross? Is she the other woman in the surveillance video? The next morning, detectives search information on the two names found in the home.
They cross-check any social media accounts to determine how they're connected.
Police locate an account for 28-year-old Ebony McEwen Ross. Scrolling through Ebony's feed, they discover that she's friends with Shantae Anderson. But that's not all.
They found a picture of Ebony, and behind her was the exactly same vehicle that was involved in the shooting. The SUV, dark color, and the back window that was taped up.
Is the SUV seen leaving the auto parts store. Investigators find that Ebony has an SUV registered in her name.
Detectives put out an APB for Ebony's vehicle. They also put one out for another vehicle, one that's registered to Leviticus Cooper.
The police now believe they have identified 3 people involved in the robbery.
It isn't long before the APB on Leviticus's vehicle pays off.
Police did pull Leviticus over and they were able to arrest him.
Once Leviticus is in custody, he spills the beans on a romance involving not just Shantae Anderson, but Ebony McEwen Ross as well. A romance that was the catalyst for the murder of James Haller Jr.
These 2 women will do or die for their man, no matter what.
Five days after the shooting death of 69-year-old James Haller Jr., Detroit police have identified 2 prime suspects in the case: Shantae Anderson and Ebony McEwen Ross.
Surveillance video shows both women there at the store where they committed this armed robbery.
The investigation has also yielded another person of interest, Leviticus Cooper, whom police believe to be Shantae's boyfriend.
Leviticus may also be involved in the robbery, maybe also the getaway driver.
While Shantae and Ebony seem to be in the wind, police have tracked down Leviticus and have brought him in for questioning. Detectives asked Leviticus about his relationship with Shantae Anderson. Leviticus characterizes it as something different than the once-in-a-lifetime romance envisioned by Shantae.
We've been messing around for a year and a half.
You guys have a romantic relationship?
Yeah, we sexual.
But it's what Leviticus says about Ebony McEwen Ross that really piques detectives' attention.
We've been messing around for 5.5 years.
There was some type of love triangle going on.
I mean, you consider them girlfriends, right?
Yeah.
How'd this happen?
I was messing around both of them. They found out about each other.
According to Leviticus, Shantae was initially devastated to learn that he was seeing another woman.
This crushes Shantae because she's in love with him.
Not that Ebony was exactly thrilled to learn about Shantae either.
They thought it was feud. I'm saying, I'm not gonna be neither one of y'all.
He was sleeping with both of us, and she looking at me like, this is my man, and I'm looking at her like, this is my man.
These women are having to vie for time, affection, commitment, attention. So it does create this kind of messy system of competition.
Leviticus says that's when he offered a solution that he described as a win-win-win.
Leviticus proposed that they all be in a relationship together.
Because I got love for both girls, man.
Leviticus says Ebony seemed cool with the proposal, but that Shantae had some misgivings, though eventually she came around.
She's thinking, if I leave, I'm no longer going to have this man in my life. I'm going to be alone.
She decides, I think I can deal with this.
I agreed to it mainly because I loved him and I saw the good in him. When you love somebody like that, I have no choice but either to accept it or reject it.
That tells you that he has a command over both of the women, that they would even say this is an okay thing for us to do.
Leviticus is a strong personality. Both the women are romantically attracted to him, and it almost becomes cult-like.
And they're your living girlfriends, right?
Yeah.
He has 2 women that are there for his pleasure, to support and provide for his emotional needs as well.
For any man to have 2 girlfriends living together, know about each other, and are totally satisfied and okay with that. Very unusual relationship.
But there was one person who Leviticus had no desire to make room for. Shantae's 4-year-old daughter.
Where's her daughter at? She's not at the house, right?
No.
Her daughter ends up moving in with her mother.
It was a big dysfunctional relationship.
Detectives are stunned by Leviticus's candid revelations. But what they really want to know is if Shantae and Ebony were behind the murder of James Haller Jr. Leviticus wastes no time throwing both his women under the bus.
These 2 did it, right? There's no question, right?
The question was asked, well, were you the driver? And he says no.
I think you're lying. I swear to God, I ain't got nothing to do with this. I'm telling you the honest to God truth, sir. I would never tell him to do no like that because I love him so much. I wouldn't put him in harm's way.
Leviticus explains he didn't even know about the crime until the day after.
He says that after the crime, he met up with Miss Anderson and she told him what occurred.
She wanted you to meet up with her?
Yes, she told me what happened.
What's the first thing she said?
She instantly started crying. You know what I mean? Saying I ain't got no place to go. She's saying, I know it's wrong. One thing led to another before I know it. We came up with the idea of robbing. We went in there, told me, baby, and I shot her. I think Like, you killed him, Shante. Why they looking for you, sweetie? You killed that man. I'm like, man, where the gun at?
Did she tell you where the gun's at?
Said she do it, that's it. She didn't tell me where.
Leviticus also tells detectives where to find Shante.
Leviticus told the police that he hid her at his grandmother's house.
When you receive information on where a wanted person may be, you want to take the right steps and be cautious, especially if that person may be armed at that time.
As for Ebony, Leviticus claims he hasn't seen her.
Where do you think she's at?
I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea.
Detectives asked Leviticus what drove these two women, especially a once hard-working single mom like Shante, to commit such a brutal crime.
Leviticus thought that the motive dealt with the fact that it was his birthday. They wanted to surprise him. They wanted to buy him a gift. So they decided, because they had no money, to rob this store.
Detectives find that statement hard to believe. But with Ebony McEwen Ross still MIA, detectives shift their focus to bringing Shante Anderson into custody.
Police goes to the house, they surround it. They're hoping that she'll surrender peacefully.
She gave herself up. They arrested her without any kind of situation or anything.
However, Ebony is nowhere to be found.
With Shante in custody, detectives hope they'll soon learn the true motive behind this seemingly senseless shooting, and how a good girl like Shante wound up on the wrong side of the law.
I feel like if I was not dating him, I wouldn't have been put in no situation like this at all.
Police have arrested Shante Anderson, one of the two women who they believe is responsible for the robbery murder that killed James Haller Jr.
She comes out of the home and surrenders without incident.
Back at the station, detectives grill Shante about her involvement in the crime.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I've worked around the police a lot. I'm very smart. And it's not that I don't want to answer your questions, but I prefer just to get a legal advisor's advice.
That's fair, but you know, it's some pretty hefty allegations that's been levied against you. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so you know, when you put it all together and it goes over to the prosecutor's office, they're gonna make their decision whether you say anything or not. Okay.
Detectives lay out the charges against her. For Shante, it's an almost out-of-body experience.
It didn't feel real. That's not me. Actually taking somebody's life. I've never been in trouble in my life. It just felt like, no, this can't be.
People suppress information. If I don't say it out loud, and if I keep convincing myself I'm a good person, then it never happened.
With Shante still refusing to answer questions, detectives decide to terminate the interview. Between Leviticus Cooper's initial statement and the surveillance video from the shooting, detectives have enough evidence to charge Shante with felony murder and armed robbery.
They had very strong evidence against her in this particular case. In Michigan, that's mandatory life in prison if convicted without parole.
A week after Shantae's arrest, the search for Ebony McEwen Ross comes to an end.
Ebony surrenders eventually to the police.
There's nothing to hide for her anymore, and there's no benefit to hiding.
She came to the police station, got out of that SUV. They had seen the surveillance video, announced who she was, and was taken into custody. They're not really sure where she was during that period of time, and she did not elaborate on it.
Unlike Shante, Ebony has plenty to say to detectives.
Was it your idea to go there or not?
No.
Whose idea was it?
It was Shantae's idea.
It was Shantae's idea to do the robbery?
Yeah, I didn't know what was gonna happen until I got there.
Have you guys ever done anything like this in the past?
Never.
What were you guys doing it for?
I don't know. I don't have an answer. I wish I did. I wish I had an answer for that family. I don't.
What do you make of all this?
My life is over. The life that I planned for myself.
Detectives press Ebony on Leviticus's involvement, but she immediately shuts them down.
There is speculation that Leviticus was the getaway driver.
Did Leviticus have anything to do with any of this? No. So what was Leviticus's role at all, if anything?
None.
She didn't give him up and say he was involved at all.
Ebony tells detectives a man named J-Rock was the one driving the getaway car.
How can we identify J-Rock? How can I find him? Do you know anything about him?
Nothing. And that's the worst part. I know nothing.
During the investigation, nobody came up with a rock.
She very well may have been protected. Leviticus, they went all the way to rob a store for him just to get him a gift.
Ebony McEwen Ross is charged with felony murder and 2 counts of armed robbery.
The police were never able to actually figure out who the driver was or to actually implicate Leviticus more than harboring after the fact.
For helping Shantae lay low after the shooting, Leviticus Cooper is formally charged with accessory after the fact.
Leviticus was charged because he let her hide at his grandmother's house after the shooting.
With Leviticus, Ebony, and Shantae all in custody, one question remains. What truly led Shantae Anderson to pull the trigger that fateful day?
In my professional opinion, women commit crimes for men because of love.
It doesn't have to be rational. It doesn't have to be logical. She loved him. And it led her to make some very destructive decisions.
In Detroit, single mom Shantae Anderson has been charged in the murder of military veteran and beloved community figure James Haller Jr. Another woman, Ebony McEwen Ross, has also been charged in the crime, which stemmed from the robbery of the auto parts store where Mr. Haller was the manager.
They were charged with felony murder, as well as 2 counts of armed robbery.
The investigation also revealed that the 2 young women were in a polyamorous relationship with 39-year-old Leviticus Cooper prior to the crime.
Talking about a 39-year-old man with a 28 and a 23-year-old woman. In this relationship, this little love triangle, that's not, common.
As for Leviticus, he's been charged as an accessory after the fact. In his interview, Leviticus claimed he had nothing to do with the murder and told police he believes Shantae and Ebony committed the robbery in order to secure the necessary funds to buy him a birthday present.
They're doing this whole, it's your birthday, let's turn up. They want to make sure that they're pleasing to him.
It speaks to desperation. They engaged in this because they loved him.
Both women decide to forego a trial and take a plea deal. At her sentencing hearing, Shantae claims she has no memory of committing the crime.
I don't really remember what happened. It's like a fog.
She was highly inebriated with alcohol and weed throughout the day of the shooting.
To say that you had no memory because you've been drinking, I mean, we've all had a couple drinks, maybe gone a little bit too far, but you don't murder someone.
Shantae tells the courtroom that the true motive behind the crime was fear. Fear that she'd upset her man, Leviticus Cooper, who over the past few months had morphed from a loving, caring partner into something far more menacing.
Leviticus ends up becoming very controlling and possessive.
She takes orders and she obeys.
When you feel like you're in love with that person, you kind of overlook all the negative.
He was 16 years her senior when there's such a substantial age difference. There is an element of control and power.
Shantae says she considered leaving, but deep down, she still loved Leviticus.
Even when there was a negative going on, basically, I would make excuses.
She got so caught up in, I want to please him. I want to make sure that he still loves me.
Shante says that on the afternoon of the crime, she and Ebony were hanging out, having a few drinks, worrying about what they could buy Leviticus for his birthday. Moments later, Leviticus's friend, a man Shante claims they knew only as J-Rock, allegedly rolled up in Ebony's black SUV.
I remember J-Rock telling us that Leviticus said go ride with him somewhere.
Shante explains that J-Rock suggested it was time to go shopping for Leviticus, whether the two women had money or not. Shante and Ebony did as they were told.
Basically, anything Leviticus say goes. J-Rock knew that if he threw his name in there, that we were going to listen.
It was an opportunity for her to prove that her love was unwavering, that she was deeply devoted to Leviticus.
If J-Rock wouldn't have said his name, I wouldn't have agreed to nothing.
Whether J-Rock or perhaps even Leviticus encouraged Shante and Ebony to commit the robbery is unclear. Because, as Shante tells the court, from that point on, things get fuzzy.
We was drinking and smoking, so I really don't remember what happened.
When it's their turn, prosecutors pick up the story where Shante left off and spell out what they believe happened inside the auto parts store on the evening of November 1st, 2017.
The two women arrived at the store.
They looked around and they only saw a few people that was inside.
Shante pulls out a handgun and points it at the clerk.
Ebony starts taking the money out of the register.
Mr. Heller came out of the back. She raised the pistol and fired.
A single shot struck Mr. Holler in the head, causing him to collapse to the floor.
They ran out immediately after that.
The women jumped in the passenger side of the SUV. There appears that there was a getaway driver, but no one actually saw that individual.
It's a gruesome picture the prosecution paints. One made all the more gut-wrenching by the impact statement given by Mr. Haller's family just prior to sentencing.
Mr. Haller's wife, she's obviously very distraught, very angry, and very upset. She tells Miss Anderson, "You don't realize what you did. I wish I can hang you."
The judge sentences Shante Anderson to 30 to 60 years in prison for her role as the shooter.
I was just pretty much numb, and I signed the plea deal and I left out the courtroom.
Shantae's lack of emotion doesn't sit well with the victim's family.
You made a poor life decision. Own up to it, instead of trying to be a little punk and run from it. Or at least show some damn remorse.
At her sentencing hearing, Ebony McEwen Ross receives a sentence of 21 to 50 years.
Ebony was very remorseful. She stood in front of the judge in tears.
Leviticus Cooper also pleads guilty to accessory after the fact for hiding Shante at his grandmother's house.
These women will spend a good chunk of their lives in prison. He ends up getting 2.5 years probation.
As for the mysterious J-Rock, detectives were never able to locate him. Some of them question whether he even existed at all.
I believe that it was Leviticus that was driving. They could have been protecting him for the sake of protecting him because he was their lover.
In the eyes of the law, justice was served. But nothing can ever bring James Haller Jr. back to his family.
I have my moments where I cry. His presence is missed. He didn't just die, he was taken from me.
It's been rough. He was my hero, my Superman.
As for Shantae's daughter, she too has suffered the ripple effects of that fateful day in 2017.
Ultimately, other family members have to step up and take care of the child.
Think before you go do something stupid. You can turn people's lives upside down, including your own.
This is not how life was supposed to be.
They say that faith makes all things possible, and that love makes all things worthwhile. But what happens when you take that leap of faith with Mr. Wrong? How far is the fall? And once you've hit rock bottom, is there any way back up?
Even though Shantae says she's not going to be defined by this, unfortunately she is. The next 30 years are defined by one moment that she decided to pull the trigger.
When a love is so strong it can't be contained, sometimes it's better to hide it from view, to keep it from those closest to you, to walk the line of a double life. But what happens when that line starts to fade? When your two worlds crash into one another? When that love you fought so hard to keep secret sneaks up from behind and swallows you whole. July 12th, 2017, 5:30 a.m. It's daybreak in Vista, California, about 40 miles northeast of San Diego.
The city of Vista has both a rural area to it as well as a city area to it. It's a nice location. It has a lot of open space.
A construction worker is driving to his latest job site, using one of Vista's desolate roads.
This is an area where there really are not a lot of people. It's just a dirt road in the middle of nowhere.
The worker spots something a few feet from the road.
He saw what appeared to be a man slumped over with no shirt on.
He honked at him. He wasn't moving. He got no response from him.
As he got a little bit closer, he saw it and the blood was dripping down his chest. He realized this guy might actually be dead, and so he called 911.
Within minutes, emergency responders arrived to assess the victim.
Patrol deputy arrived, and he immediately noticed there was blood all over his chest and his face.
There were 3 gunshot wounds. One was to his chest, the other was to his thigh, and the final one was to the back of his head.
As police dive into the investigation, they'll soon discover a grisly plot with a love-struck teenager at the center of it all. 18-year-old cheerleader Shafaa Chevis was living the high school dream.
Shafaa was very active in high school. She was in a number of activities. She's well liked by her friends and peers.
Everyone in the community really just admired her.
With her senior year coming to a close, Shafaa had big plans for the future.
Shafaa was on the honor roll and had gotten into college. She was looking into being a dentist.
She had college award letters. She had a very bright future.
From the outside, Shafaa's life seemed perfect. But on the inside, Shafaa felt a bit lonely.
All her friends are partnering up, and there's that sense of who's going to be my guy.
She thought, I know that I've got this future, I've worked all hard for this, but there's this piece that's missing.
In December of 2016, Shafaa found what she was looking for. When she reconnected with an old friend, 20-year-old Shirelle Wesley.
She knew him from being friends with her brother. and coming over to the house. Shafa, from the time she was 4th or 5th grade, put him up on a pedestal. So he's up there and I'm down here. I'm this bookworm, he's this superstar.
Shirelle was a hip-hop dancer and aspiring rapper, making a splash in the local music scene.
He was that kind of guy that everybody wanted to be around, wore the good clothing and had videos, but he made some bad choices.
Shirelle had just been released from prison and was back in town.
Shirelle had previously been arrested for armed robbery of a gun shop.
They took over the store, they assaulted the manager. Based on that incident, Shirelle was sentenced to 2 years in state prison.
Even though Shafa's brother had experienced a falling out with Shirelle, Shafa continued to hold a soft spot for him.
They were complete polar opposites. Shafa kind of saw that bad boy attitude and kind of was attracted to that.
Shafa knew her family wouldn't approve, but she couldn't deny the spark she felt.
They thought he was bad news. Shafa's brother didn't want anything to do with him at that point. He was not welcome anymore.
In an effort to hide their relationship from Shafa's parents, Shafa and Shirelle began hanging out in secret.
Shafa spent every day with him. She really hit it off with him, and she had to keep it a secret.
The chemistry between the two was magnetic.
Shafa was infatuated with this older guy and thought that she had found this excitement and romance that she was looking for.
Her life no longer was school, friends, family. It was Shirelle, Shirelle, Shirelle.
She had fallen for him. She was in love with him, and she wanted to be with him at any cost.
But little did she know, the world of trouble her lifelong crush would soon get her in. July 12, 2017. San Diego detectives have just responded to a gunshot victim found dead about 40 miles outside the city.
Police were on the scene in this remote area where they had found a body with 3 gunshot wounds.
It did not appear to be a crime of passion. This more appeared to be some type of planned event.
Investigators searched through the victim's pockets for identifying information.
Detectives pull out his wallet, and they found his identification.
The victim is 21-year-old D'Angelo Sharon. In addition to his ID, detectives also find a receipt in the victim's wallet.
The receipt was from a liquor store that was about an hour and a half away from the crime scene near downtown San Diego, where he had made a transaction about 12:30 in the morning.
So now we're looking at a small window which puts our victim in San Diego 4 hours ago.
Detectives survey the scene for additional evidence. They spot 2 .40 caliber shell casings less than 10 feet from the body and a trail of blood drops.
There was also a fingernail that was broken off, laying in the middle of the roadway, right amongst the blood droplets.
It was a woman's type fingernail, burgundy red, acrylic.
It seems a woman is connected to D'Angelo's death. But how? Detectives would soon uncover a popular cheerleader had gotten in too deep with her man. And all hell had broke loose.
The dream she thought she was going to have was going to become a nightmare.
18-year-old Shafa Chevis had fallen head over heels for 20-year-old Shirelle Wesley.
Shafa and Shirelle seemed to hit it off with a mutual infatuation for each other.
The cheerleader was dating Shirelle behind her family's back.
I noticed that Shafa was acting differently and that she would not confide in me. I had no clue she was in a relationship.
Having that double life was the road for trouble for Shafa.
July 12th, 2017. Police have identified murder victim 21-year-old D'Angelo Sharon, who was found shot to death on a remote roadside in Vista, California.
Now that the detectives knew who D'Angelo Sharon was, the next step was to contact his family.
Investigators strike out on finding D'Angelo's next of kin, but they do find a curious association. D'Angelo's last known address is also the family home of recent prison parolee Shirelle Wesley.
Shirelle actually had a violent history. He had been prosecuted for an armed gun store robbery.
With Shirelle's history and connection to the victim, detectives hope he can offer some clues as to who killed D'Angelo. Later that day, they pay a visit to the Wesley residence. Shirelle isn't home, but detectives notify Mr. and Mrs. Wesley of D'Angelo's death.
They were devastated to hear the news. The Wesley family had revealed to the detectives that D'Angelo was basically like a family member and the best friend of their son, Shirelle.
The Wesley family allowed D'Angelo to stay there. D'Angelo's home life wasn't exactly the greatest.
Then, the Wesleys tell detectives about a disturbing incident that happened earlier that same day.
Shirelle had told them around 7 a.m. when he returned to the house that he believed that D'Angelo had been kidnapped and was possibly murdered by either cartel or Mexican mafia people.
The Wesleys say they had been hoping D'Angelo would turn up unharmed, but feared the worst.
They said that they had been planning on contacting the police themselves.
Detectives aren't so sure Shirelle was telling his parents the truth.
D'Angelo was not associating with gang members in Vista. But the family absolutely believed what Shirelle had said, that it had to be that D'Angelo got into some problems on his own and that it couldn't have been Shirelle. Shirelle and D'Angelo were the best of friends. They were brothers.
Detectives ask Mr. and Mrs. Wesley if they know where Shirelle is now.
They had no idea where he was at. They hadn't heard from him since earlier that morning.
It was clear Shirelle's family didn't know anything about what D'Angelo and Shirelle possibly could have been doing.
Detectives thank the Wesleys for their time and put out an APB for Shirelle.
They think he's hiding something.
It seems strange that he disappeared after giving this odd story about the cartel and didn't even contact law enforcement.
As police fan out in search of Shirelle, detectives pursue the next lead, the liquor store receipt.
The receipt from the liquor store was dated July 12th at about 30 minutes after midnight.
When detectives arrive at the store, they ask the manager to view the surveillance footage from the night before.
Around midnight, it shows a white Toyota pull up to the side of the liquor store. Our victim, D'Angelo, walking into the store with another male.
I noticed that he had tattoos on his neck, tattoos on his face, similar hair to Shirelle Wesley.
The men approached the front cashier and examined the alcohol display. After a few minutes, the second man detectives believe to be Shirelle leaves the store and returns to the car.
The detectives see the driver of the vehicle as a black female, and she doesn't get out of the vehicle. She's just in the front seat. We have a very good suspicion that that's going to be her fingernail that's at the crime scene.
As Shirelle and the woman wait for D'Angelo, things get a little hot and heavy.
They appeared to start making out. Became very intimate while sitting there in the car, waiting for D'Angelo to purchase the alcohol.
Minutes later, D'Angelo returns to the car with a bag of liquor, and the trio drives away.
D'Angelo, he's found dead on the side of the road not too long after he had been seen with Shirelle.
Detectives are sure Shirelle and his lady friend are both connected to the murder. But how do they find them? Luckily, the surveillance video gives them a great lead.
The license plate is extremely clear because of the new type of security cameras. We need to get in contact with the register owner.
Back at the station, detectives run a quick search on the license plate.
The license plate comes back to the register owner's address, Shafaa Chavez.
Shafaa has no criminal record and seems like a model citizen.
She was that all-American girl that you'd want to have living next door.
So how did this girl next door end up connected to a vicious murder? And why?
Her heart was blinded. She didn't know better. And that's what made it a disaster.
July 2017. San Diego police are investigating the murder of 21-year-old D'Angelo Cherone. They need to speak to his best friend, Shirelle Wesley, and Shirelle's girlfriend, Shafaa Chavez, after surveillance footage shows the couple with D'Angelo hours before his death.
At this point, we had a convicted felon with D'Angelo and this girl who seemed to have a very different background in life. It was a real mystery to the detectives why she was with them.
The surveillance video establishes probable cause and allows detectives to obtain a search warrant of the teen's car. Just after 9 p.m. on July 17th, police head to Shafaa's family home.
They caught Shafaa with cleaning supplies walking out to her white car.
This looks very, very suspicious. It's like she's trying to clean up evidence of what had happened in this car.
When police cuff the 18-year-old, they notice she's missing a red fingernail.
We need to match the broken fingernail at the scene with the broken fingernail that she has on her left hand.
The commotion sends Shafaa into a panic.
She was a cheerleader, honor student. She's going to be emotionally very agitated because this is not her world. She never dealt with the police.
Shafaa sort of had a defeated slump about her when she realized they had a warrant and that they were going to get into the trunk of that car.
Shafaa's parents come outside to see what's going on, and they're stunned by the sight.
It just was disbelief, still so much disbelief.
Shafaa and her family can only watch as investigators search every inch of her car.
They found a pair of sweatpants, socks, and shoes. All of them had what appeared to be dried blood on them.
Immediately, you could tell they were the same items from the video that Shirelle Wesley was wearing the night before.
Police also recover a blue sweatshirt that matches the one D'Angelo had on in the liquor store surveillance video.
D'Angelo's dead body was found shirtless.
After searching Shafaa's vehicle, investigators proceed inside the family home. Inside the teen's bedroom, they hit pay dirt.
We located a black backpack. Inside that was a Hi-Point .40 caliber handgun.
This was the same caliber of handgun that matched the .40 caliber casings at the crime scene.
They also find an open package of alcohol swabs next to the weapon.
It had appeared that someone had been using them in order to try to wipe down the gun.
After the evidence is collected, Shafaa's parents can only look on in shock as their perfect daughter is taken into custody.
When the police arrived at the house, I figured if it was anything, it was something minor. But when she told me it was for murder, it was mind-blowing. Could not believe that.
On the north side of town, officers staking out the Wesley family home catch a lucky break.
They do see an individual that matches the description of Shirel, and it is in fact Shirel.
Police move in, but it seems Shirel is not going down without a fight.
He realized that they were hot on his trail and tried to run.
I pulled my gun, I pointed it at his chest. I said, "Sheriff's Department, get on the ground, get on the ground." And he immediately put his hands up, and he got down on the ground, face down.
Officers arrest Shirel without further incident and confiscate his cell phone. As they're getting ready to leave, they notice something outside the neighbor's home that could produce even more evidence against Shirel.
Investigators discovered that a neighbor had a home security camera.
Back at the station with Shafaa and Shirel in custody, investigators examine the footage recorded on the morning of July 12th. It shows Shafaa and Shirel pull up just after 6 a.m.
Shirel exits the vehicle, and Shafaa gets out of the front passenger seat.
Shirel is wearing shorts as they approach the rear door of the vehicle and stop directly in view of the camera.
Shafaa and Shirel embrace, kissing passionately, like, hey, we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be just fine.
The video provides a crucial link for investigators.
It shows that the couple is together at 6:15 in the morning.
This is just after the 911 caller reported D'Angelo's body on the roadside in Vista. The couple was clearly together during the murder. But the question is, would they stick together now?
We were wondering whether one was going to roll against the other.
When detectives sit down with Shirel, he'll make an admission they never saw coming.
She loves him and trusts him, but he's throwing the whole thing on her.
July 17th, 2017. San Diego police have just arrested Shafaa Chevis and Shirel Wesley in connection with the murder of D'Angelo Cherone.
We had both of these suspects in custody, as well as a mountain of physical evidence against them.
Shafaa and Shirel sit in separate but nearby holding rooms while they await questioning. Investigators have purposely placed them in close proximity.
The holding cells would be to our advantage in order to see if they would communicate with each other.
It doesn't take long for Shafaa and Shirel to realize they can see each other.
The couple was trying to figure out what their story was going to be.
But how far are they willing to go to protect each other? Investigators pull Shirel in for interrogation first and ask him if he knows the victim.
Yes, I do know D'Angelo. That's my best friend.
Did you get into an argument and shoot D?
No, I would never do that to my best friend.
Detectives confront Shirel with being in the same car with D'Angelo hours before his murder.
He denies that's even him in the video. The investigators noted, you have a face tattoo of a cross on your face. This is you in the picture, and he again denied that being him.
Investigators ask Shirel about his relationship with Shafaa Chevis, and his next statement is equally surprising.
You know Shafa? Shafa, no. You don't know anyone named Shafa? No.
Shirel denied her completely. Not just it wasn't his girlfriend, but he denied knowing Shafaa even existed.
Detectives knew Shirel was lying and that he was clearly the person who was in that liquor store video.
Investigators press Shirel, detailing the mountain of evidence against him.
Detectives had Shirel's clothes with blood on them from Shafaa's trunk. They had videos of Shirel with Shafaa and D'Angelo.
Faced with the abundant evidence, Shirel finally relents.
He gives in and admits that Shafaa is his girlfriend.
He admitted that they were all hanging out together that night, but he denied any responsibility for what happened to D'Angelo.
Shirel said he loved D'Angelo like a family member and that he would never hurt his brother.
He tells investigators that on the evening of July 12th, the three of them had driven to a remote area in Vista to hang out.
He said they had been drinking out there.
Shirel says that after a couple hours, D'Angelo got drunk and argumentative.
D'Angelo made some comment and disrespected Shirel, and Shirel challenged D'Angelo to a fight.
During their scuffle, Shirel says a gun that had been tucked into the waistband of D'Angelo's pants fell out on the ground.
They broke apart for a few seconds, and all of a sudden he heard bullets.
Shirel says he looked over and saw Shafaa standing near the car, a few feet away.
He said that Shafaa had pulled the trigger and killed D'Angelo. He yelled at her, "What are you doing? You just killed my best friend."
Shirel says Shafaa was just trying to defend him, but he never wanted her to shoot D'Angelo.
Investigators were shocked by the fact that Shirel was throwing his teenage girlfriend under the bus.
Shirel claims he never called police because he was trying to protect Shafaa, but detectives aren't buying it.
You just saw your friend get shot. You didn't go over there, render any first aid, anything. You got in the car and you drove away. And an hour and a half after we see them on video kissing.
For detectives, Shirel's version seems as unlikely as the lies he told his family about D'Angelo being abducted by a drug cartel.
It became very apparent that he wasn't going to give a truthful statement.
D'Angelo Sharon had been shot 3 times, the final shot being an execution-style wound.
That statement that he provided was completely uncorroborated by any evidence. The trajectory of the bullets did not make any sense. That Shafaa could have shot him standing near the car and hit him at an angle in the top of the head.
It seems more likely to detectives that the fatal shots had been fired by the felon rather than the high school cheerleader.
Shirel had more experience with guns, and he had a record. And if he and D'Angelo were fighting that night, he would need a better reason to want him dead.
When detectives speak with Shafaa, they hope she'll reveal what really happened that fateful night, especially once they tell her about Shirel's statement.
This person that she thought loved her was all about himself.
She's been betrayed by him and is faced with this decision about, what am I going to do?
"18-year-old cheerleader Shafaa Chevis has been arrested in connection to the execution-style murder of D'Angelo Sharon."
We all were in a state of shock because we had no idea that anything of this capacity could be happening to our little girl.
Shafaa's boyfriend, Shirel Wesley, has just told investigators that she pulled the trigger on his best friend.
In Shafa's eyes, she's looking to Cherelle to be this great protector, and he had essentially thrown her under the bus.
With Cherelle's statement in tow, detectives speak with Shafa. They tell her that Cherelle has pinned everything on her.
You can almost hear the heart shattering into pieces.
Distraught by Cherelle's betrayal, Shafa decides to cooperate with police.
Shafa began to realize that this person that she thought was protect her and loved her did not love her, that he was all about himself. So at this point, she would go into a place of, I need to survive.
Shafa explains to detectives that she has been dating Cherelle behind her family's back. But after a while, she saw a side of him her family had been fearful of all along.
Shafa was definitely afraid of him. She had good reasons. He had abused her physically to the extent that she had a damaged jaw.
Arguments were happening every day. Any physical abuse, he would also blame it on her and say that, well, you got it because you shouldn't have, disrespected me this way. And she began to believe that.
Shafa tells investigators, 10 days before the murder, Cherelle showed her a gun while they were together.
She asked what he's doing with the handgun, and he said to her, hey, are you down with me? Are you going to be there for me? She didn't know where was this coming from.
Shafa says she was terrified, but she agreed to ride for him.
It's just her and him, and she said, of course I'm down with you.
Shafa says that's when Cherelle made a startling statement.
Cherelle went on to say that he believed that D'Angelo was plotting his murder and that he was going to take out D'Angelo before D'Angelo took him out. D'Angelo had been hanging out with other individuals in different dance crews. This anger was fueled by his paranoia, so that he believed that D'Angelo was going to murder him.
Shafa basically told us that Cherelle had been planning this murder.
And so Shafa went along with it. She didn't tell law enforcement, she didn't tell her family, didn't tell anybody.
All of that must have been confusing for her within this kind of, I love this guy, I want to protect this guy, but he's got me doing these things that totally supersede my own values.
Shafa says she had no idea Cherelle would actually follow through with killing his best friend.
She didn't think any of that was going to happen.
Shafa claims that on July 11th, when Cherelle told her they were going to pick up D'Angelo to hang out, she didn't think anything of it.
They were planning on going out and drinking and just having a good time.
Shafa says they drove around, and the guys were drinking heavily.
D'Angelo, he got hot, and he took off his shirt before he passed out in the back seat.
That's when the night took a dark turn.
Cherelle told Shafa not to say a thing and tells her to drive north. Don't ask any questions, just do what I'm telling you.
Shafa's got to be terrified. But blinded by love, she was willing to do anything for this man to keep him happy.
They got on the freeway and wound up on a remote road in Vista.
She says Cherelle then put on some gloves and removed the firearm from under the seat.
She knew that he was going to confront D'Angelo.
Cherelle got out of the car and went around to the back, where D'Angelo was fast asleep.
Cherelle then opened the door, and he hit D'Angelo directly in the top of the head.
Shafa says D'Angelo was dazed as Cherelle dragged him out of the car at gunpoint.
D'Angelo kept asking, why are you doing this?
Cherelle told D'Angelo because he had been disrespected by his best friend.
Shafa says she heard D'Angelo deny the accusations, but that only fueled Cherelle's rage.
Shafa says that she heard D'Angelo say, I didn't do that. You're my brother, I love you. Please don't do this. And then she heard 3 gunshots.
After that, Cherelle jumped into the car and ordered Shafa to drive.
Shafar, she had to be terrified. She loved this guy, but she just saw what he was capable of if she didn't obey his commands.
She jumped out to close the car doors, but broke her fingernail in a rush.
Shafar tells detectives she drove to her house, as Shirel instructed.
He then instructed her to go inside and get a pair of her brother's shorts and some tennis shoes, which she complied with and brought him out there.
Shafar says Shirel changed and put his bloody items into the trunk. Then, he told her she needed to help him cover up the crime.
Shirel told Shafar, now you're going to destroy all this crime scene evidence. Anything with blood on it, including the gun, is going to be your responsibility to destroy this stuff.
Shafar is in shock and awe. How am I here? But that sense of, he's my world, I need to please him and protect him. That was the battle in her.
As the sun rises, they arrive at Shirel's house at 6 a.m., where they are captured on his neighbor's surveillance.
The surveillance camera caught them making out right after this horrible crime.
Although the weight of the world was on her shoulder, Shafar was continuing to show loyalty to her man.
After Shafar finishes her confession, she and Shirel are both charged with first-degree murder.
Shafar didn't pull the trigger, but she was complicit in the actions that led to someone's death.
Shafar's family is in shock.
We felt they had the wrong person, that she was being accused of something that we knew she couldn't have been involved in.
With the trial looming, prosecutors believe their case is rock solid. But will the love-struck cheerleader stay true to her confession? Or would she recant?
She had been manipulated by a very, very complex, borderline sociopath who can get people to act on his behalf.
July 2017. 18-year-old cheerleader Shafar Chevis has confessed to her part in D'Angelo Sharon's murder.
Her love for Shirel turned her life upside down.
Investigators charge both Shafar and her boyfriend, Shirel Wesley, with first-degree murder.
She could face life in prison for this. It was just so unbelievable that one errant decision could lead her to such a devastating possibility.
But there is a glimmer of hope for Shafar.
Shafar, she had very valuable information to offer, so I offered a plea bargain in exchange for her testifying against Shirel Wesley at trial.
She's thinking, do I protect myself or do I protect him?
In October 2018, more than a year after D'Angelo Sharon's murder, the trial against Shirel Wesley begins. Prosecutors argue Shirel killed his best friend and enlisted Shafar Chevis to help execute and cover up the crime.
He had this unfounded paranoia that D'Angelo was going to kill him, so he decided to kill D'Angelo first.
Shafar serves as the prosecution's star witness.
It took a lot of courage for Shafar to go into that courtroom, face this person that she had been in love with for so long, that had thrown her under the bus, and testify against him.
When Shafar takes the stand, she explained she felt like she had no choice but to follow her man's orders.
She testified about the physical and emotional abuse she suffered at the hands of her boyfriend. She talked about how she was really being forced into doing a lot of things just to support him.
So she was afraid of him at the time. She was afraid that he would harm her if she didn't go along with his wishes.
To combat Shafar's testimony, Shirel Wesley takes the stand in his own defense, and he is ultimately found guilty of first-degree murder.
He was sentenced to the maximum, 80 years to life.
As part of her plea deal, Shafa Chevis receives a sentence of 6 years in state prison for voluntary manslaughter.
So this case was a loss on so many different fronts. The victim, the Wesley family who lost a son to prison, and then you have Shafa, who is an All-American scholar, athlete, contributing member of society. Now she's spending the next 6 years in state prison.
For Shafa, her first crush became her worst nightmare and has left a lasting mark on her life she'll never forget.
Her life has changed from light into darkness, but we have hope that this can even be redeemed in her life.
First crushes can be exhilarating, but secret love, that can elicit danger. Especially if that love asks you to forego who you are and what you value. You may find your entire life turned upside down. Abuse is never okay. If you or someone you love is in an abusive relationship, there is help available. Call the Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE.